documents. As you can see, the trust dictates that all assets are now mine.
Your father was very thorough.
Indeed.
I was in my workshop when her lawyer called. The smell of oil and metal filled the air, and the sound of grinders echoed off the concrete walls. My hands were caked in grease, and I had my phone wedged between my shoulder and my ear. I was expecting the usual back and forth, the normal formalities that come with a divorce. What I didn't expect was the sheer confidence in his voice. "We'll need the trust documents from 1987, he said, his tone sharp and final, all of them. A small, involuntary smile touched my lips. "Those are public record," I replied calmly, wiping my hands on a rag. There was a pause on the other end. It wasn't long, but it was just long enough to tell me he hadn't expected that answer. He thought he'd found a secret, a hidden ace up my sleeve. For 35 years, I had lived a life that, from the outside, looked incredibly simple. I worked with my hands. I built things that were meant to last. I paid the people who worked for me fairly, and I slept well at night. My wife, however, had always believed there was something more, something hidden just beneath the surface of my ordinary life, some secret fortune, some grand, elaborate deception. And now that our marriage was ending, she was determined to find proof. Proof she could use to destroy me. She had convinced herself that the trust my father set up decades ago was a personal treasure chest, one that I'd selfishly locked her out of. She believed that by exposing it, she would humiliate me, ruin my reputation in our small community, and secure a massive victory in the divorce court. The funny thing is, she never once asked why the trust existed in the first place. She never asked what it was meant to protect. She only ever asked one question: how much is it worth? The divorce papers arrived 2 days later, delivered by a courier. The pages were filled with accusations, financial manipulation, concealed assets, intentional exclusion from marital property. I read them slowly, not with anger, but with a profound sense of disappointment. After all those years together, after everything we had built, this was how she saw me. A liar, a manipulator, a thief. Her lawyer doubled down during our first meeting. He sat across the table, leaning forward with the posture of a man who was absolutely certain he held all the cards. "You controlled the trust?" he stated, his voice dripping with accusation. "You benefited from it throughout the entire marriage." "No," I corrected him, keeping my voice gentle. "I administered it." He let out a short, condescending smirk. "We'll see about that," he said. I didn't argue, I didn't try to explain, and I certainly didn't warn him. I just let him believe he was on the verge of a great victory, because I knew something that neither of them did. You see, the trust wasn't a hiding place for money, it was a filter. My father had created it after watching his own brother lose everything his business, his home, his dignity in a messy, vindictive divorce. He believed that money revealed a person's true character faster and more brutally than hardship ever could. So he built safeguards into the trust, quiet ones, legal ones, permanent ones. The language was dense and boring, buried deep in the legal text, but its function was simple. Anyone who tried to claim ownership of the trust assets through marriage, anyone who challenged the trust's legitimacy in court, anyone who attempted to weaponize it for personal gain, they were automatically and irrevocably removed from it, forever, no exceptions, no reversals. The clause was designed to be devastating, but only to those who approached it with greed. And the moment her lawyer filed those divorce papers, citing the trust as a marital asset to be divided, she triggered it. I didn't tell her, I didn't tell him either, I just watched. The discovery process moved quickly. They demanded records, filed motions, and pushed hard, convinced they were closing in on a hidden fortune. But the harder they pushed, the deeper they were burying themselves. They were so focused on what they thought was inside the box that they never bothered to read the warning label on the outside. Then, a few nights later, my phone rang. The screen glowed, 2:17 a.m. unknown number. I answered it. It was him, the lawyer. But his voice was completely different this time. It was thin. Careful, almost afraid. "We need to talk," he said, the bravado completely gone. "I'm listening," I replied, sitting up in my bed. I could hear the shuffling of papers on his end, the sound of his own ragged breathing. I've been reviewing the trust documents, he he said slowly, choosing his words with extreme care. Section 4, I waited. I didn't say a word. There's a forfeiture clause, he continued, his voice barely a whisper. A challenge penalty. Yes, I said simply. There was another long silence. He was processing it. He was realizing the full scope of his mistake. You knew this would happen, he finally said. It wasn't a question. It was an accusation born of desperation. I knew what the trust was designed to do, I corrected him. The silence stretched between us again, thick with the weight of his career-defining blunder. My client. She is permanently disqualified, he finally managed to say, the words catching in his throat. Even if we withdraw the claim right now. That's correct, I confirmed. His voice cracked. It was the sound of a man watching his entire strategy crumble into dust. Why? He asked, his voice full of disbelief. Why didn't you say anything? I leaned back against my pillows and looked out the window into the dark. You didn't ask. The call ended shortly after that. There were no more threats, no more posturing. Just the cold, hard reality setting in. The next morning, she showed up at my front door, unannounced. She looked completely different. No makeup, no designer clothes, no confidence. Just raw panic in her eyes. You set me up? She accused, her voice shaking with a mixture of anger and fear. No, I replied, my voice even and calm. You set yourself up. I just didn't stop you, she screamed then, she cried. She threw every ounce of blame at me, accusing me of ruining her future, of tricking her, of embarrassing her. She said I had taken something that she deserved, something she was entitled to. You were never entitled to it, I said quietly, the words hanging in the air between us. That's the whole point of the trust. She just stared at me, her eyes wide as if she were seeing a complete stranger for the first time. And maybe in that moment The divorce settlement followed quickly after that. Without the trust as a weapon, she had no leverage. The financial demands became reasonable. The tone of the negotiations changed completely.